I originally wasn't going to talk about Brave New World, but I saw Canadian's Lad video, and I agree and disagree with some of the points he made, so I thought I would talk about it. And I do want to say I do like this movie, and it is not nearly as bad as any of these movies. But after I finished watching it, I just felt nothing, and that's because this movie feels extremely hollow and flat. I mean, just from watching the trailers, you pretty much understand exactly how this movie's going to play out, and I think that's a combination of the trailers showing too much, as well as the movie just not delving enough into really much of anything. Like, for example, Isaiah Bradley's character is such a missed opportunity in this movie. His character is one of my favorite parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I think that his character in the show plays such an interesting role in not wanting Sam to take the shield because of what the shield means to him, and later Sam taking the shield anyway and showing everyone that he wasn't just going to be a soldier for the government like John Walker, but that he was actually going to stand for something and make changes like Captain America should. But Isaiah's character in Brave New World is barely anything. In the beginning of the movie, Isaiah, Cap, and Falcon get invited to the White House, and Isaiah gets mind controlled and tries to shoot Ross, but he misses and then he gets arrested. Also, in the scene where he's getting arrested, the mind control wears off, and you could see the genuine fear on his face from not only not knowing what just happened to him, but also him not wanting to go back to prison and experience the same horrible things that happened to him before. And Carl Lumbly's performance is so good here. But anyways, he gets arrested, and after Sam talks to Ross and tries to explain to him that Isaiah was being mind controlled, and Ross just doesn't believe him and dismisses him completely. Like, yeah, Super Soldier gets mind controlled and tries to take out the president. That's never happened before. And this is what I mean by the movie seems sort of flat, because there's something so interesting that could be done here with Bucky being a super soldier, former spy assassin that took out a former president, now being a member of Congress, versus Isaiah being locked up and struggling to get anyone to believe him that he was being mind controlled. And I think the idea of tackling an issue as big as two people committing the same crime, but one getting much worse treatment because of discrimination, could be an extremely interesting thing they could have tackled, but nope. There's literally two more scenes with Isaiah. One with him talking to Sam in prison, and the next of him being let go of prison because Sombra found out he's being mind controlled. Also, I'm going to talk about her later. But what a complete waste of a character. After the first act, he has almost nothing to do with the story. And maybe he did in the original cut of this movie, and maybe all of it just got buried under all the reshoots, but I can't help but feel the reshoots when I see he plays such a big part of the first act of the movie, then is barely in the rest. So speaking of reshoots, remember Giancarlo Esposito? I remember before this movie came out, it was like big news he was going to be in the movie, but he's in 2 scenes in this movie. Seriously, why was he added? It feels like Marvel didn't have any cameos to put in this movie, so they just put Gus in here to sell a few extra tickets to people who wouldn't have originally seen it. I seriously think he was only added to add like 2 fight scenes, because he straight up disappears from this movie. Like, have you ever seen the first Amazing Spider-Man movie and wondered where how do you say this guy's name? Oh my god, he's dead? Like, have you ever watched the first Amazing Spider-Man movie and wondered where Irfan Khan went after the bridge scene? Well, that's exactly what happens to Giancarlo Esposito in this. Like, he just straight up disappears. And it's not like he has to have a crazy character arc or resolution, but when you hire a big name like Giancarlo Esposito and make a big deal that he's gonna be in your movie, I expect a little bit more than just 2 fight scenes. And another part of this movie that feels extremely undercooked is the main villain, the leader. Ross had him locked up for 9 years, so he's getting revenge by causing trouble to other countries and giving Ross the medicine to turn him into Red Hulk to ruin his reputation. That's it. That's all he does in this movie. He seriously could have been anyone. Him being the guy from the Hulk movie no one has seen in like a decade has almost no relevance except to make people point at the screen and go, oh wow, it's that guy. And they show him in the trailers too, so it's not even like it's a big reveal. We already knew beforehand. And yet again, another character in this movie that is extremely underutilized. Like, Ronan from the first Guardians movie is more interesting and has more screen time than this guy. Almost every scene is just him talking about how smart he is and how his plans are in place, and he's just so uninteresting. And after getting his revenge on Ross and technically winning, he then turns himself into the police. Wasn't the whole reason you were doing this was because Ross locked you up and now you want to go back to prison? He actually has to be bottom 5 worst MCU villains, and that's a pretty low list. Alright, now I'm going to be talking a little bit about the biggest controversy, the character Sabra. I'm not going to get super into depth or anything. I'm just going to say Marvel shouldn't have put her in the movie, and all the reshoots should have taken her out. Like, she's barely in this movie and has nothing to add, doesn't do anything. So I don't know why they didn't just take her out during all the reshoots, but that's all I'm going to say about that. I just thought it was worth bringing up because it's one of the biggest points of contention with this movie. But alright, now let's get to the biggest part of the marketing of this movie, Red Hulk. But there's not too much to talk about, honestly. I seriously think Red Hulk in the marketing of this movie is one of the main reasons why people left so disappointed. And I don't blame them, I was too. He's in most of the posters and the trailers, and he was one of the biggest selling points of this movie. And he has a grand total of 8 minutes. 8 minutes in this 2-hour movie. I was waiting for the end credit scene longer than I was watching Red Hulk on screen. And everyone is saying they should have kept Red Hulk out of the trailers and marketing. And while I do agree that that would have helped people not feel so misled by the marketing, I also think we would have known either way, with like leakers being such a big part of Marvel movies now. And in my opinion, it would have been common knowledge even before the movie came out, even if he was left out of the marketing. But also, I think an even bigger point as to how we would have known Red Hulk is in this movie is Ross. I would say most casual Marvel fans barely know who Ross is, so Marvel going through the trouble of not only keeping Ross, even though William Hurt passed away, but also recasting him with such a huge name like Harrison Ford. But I think most people who keep up with anything to do with Marvel would have probably known Red Hulk was in the movie. But with that being said, I still think we would have enjoyed the movie a lot more had they not shoved the fact that Red Hulk was going to be in the movie in our faces, because they led us all to believe that he was going going to have at least a slightly bigger part to play in the movie than 8 minutes. I do think the lead up to him becoming Red Hulk is actually pretty good, with the first scene of the whole movie being him taking the medicine, then getting more and more angry throughout the movie, and him having to take even more medicine to keep him under control. But again, the marketing does a disservice to the movie, because if you watch the trailer, you already know when and where he turns into Red Hulk, so it leaves no surprises when you see him about to turn on the boat, and we know for a fact he isn't going to turn on the boat, because all we see of Red Hulk is when he's in front of the White House. So when I was watching him about to turn into Red Hulk on the boat, I felt no tension, because I knew he wasn't going to turn. And speaking of no tension, we finally get to the Red Hulk fight scene, and watching it, I'm gonna be honest, I just felt nothing. Have you ever seen a movie with like a giant laser pointed over New York City and a bunch of destruction in a movie, and you just feel nothing while watching it? That's exactly how I felt watching this fight. I did like visually what I was looking at, but it just felt like it had zero stakes. I knew nothing of any weight was gonna happen, I knew no one was gonna die, and Sam was just gonna save the day. Because so far this movie hasn't done anything I haven't expected, so why would that change now? I'm still not exactly sure why I wasn't really excited at all when the big fight finally happened, but I just didn't really feel much at all. It just all kind of felt hollow, and that's kind of how most of this movie feels. Just a generic action movie that if it wasn't a comic book movie, I don't think I would ever watch again. And it's not as good as some of these movies or actively bad as some of these, but in a way it's almost worse because there's not much of anything worth talking about. And it sucks because I feel like there were some good ideas, but none explored to their fullest potential, whether that be because of the reshoots or maybe it was always like this, I'm not sure. But the main person I do feel for with this movie is Anthony Mackie. He is really good at Captain America and deserves a great movie to show that. Not a movie with a big controversy and misleading marketing with crazy reshoots and rewrites. Also, that was the worst end credits scene ever, right?